call the meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority to order for Tuesday, March 8th, 2022 at 8 a.m. First of all, I'd like to greet everybody and thank you for being here. Joan, thank you for being back in person. Much appreciated. Can everybody hear us out there?
We can.
Good. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on the line. That's correct, Darren? 6? Good. All right. All right. Let's start off by approving the airport vouchers totaling $399,157.39.
So moved.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any conversation? None. Roll call vote. Lind?
Aye.
Osgood?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Aye. Next individual vouchers, A through I. Teal Strode, $40,800. Mead and Hunt, $68,286.87. Flint Communications, $15,688.91. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, $15,794.02. Mead and Hunt, $5,641.27. Peterson Mechanical, $54,900. Eide Bailey, $2,650. Fuller Aviation, $1,875, and Sixel LLC, $2,108. Motion.
Sean, I get a question.
Mm-hmm.
That U.S. Border Customs and Border Protection, that was significantly lower than the estimate was came in last year, was it not?
Yeah, I went online and found the equipment a lot cheaper and brought that to their attention, and it started out at 50-some thousand.
Yeah.
And then it was down to 25, and then now it's on 15. So,
great.
And the equipment that they installed is actually 2 years out of date, but that's all for there.
Good on you. Yes, very good.
I'll make a motion to approve Alpha through India.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? None. Roll call.
Lind?
Aye.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Hingham?
Aye. Moving on to number 3, received communications from Eide Bailey regarding the calendar year 2021 passenger facility charge audits.
Okay, we've been conducting our audit since, I guess, we started the PFC program in 1997. They've done this since 98, and I guess the last paragraph on the first page is, in our opinion, the airport complied with all material respects with the compliance requirements referred to above that could have direct and material effect on the PFC program for year ended December 31, 2021. Total amount of funds that we collected, we do this on a cash basis, it was $1,580,886. That's reimbursing ourselves for projects that were completed over the past number of years that are eligible under the PFC program. So, if you have any questions, I had a finding. They never do. Yeah.
I move the acceptance, and also could you make sure that everyone in the Fargo City Commission gets copies?
I did, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? None. Roll call.
Lind?
Aye.
Osgood?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Hingham?
Number 4, received communications from CMTA regarding mechanical and electrical design services at Eastside Terminal.
So this is what they had, we'd approved at our last meeting. They just came back with their price for $9,600. They have started the project to try and improve the quality of the air within the Spectrum area. They're also going to go through the entire East Terminal building. Dan, I don't know if they've taken their tour yet, or? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that process is under place. So the fee was $9,600 to get that out there and get some bids for us, if we can get any bids. We'll see. So, kind of for your information.
Move on to number 5, received communication regarding the sale of the Hamilton.
In your packet is a communication from Frederickson and Byron, F. John Williams III, representing Dr. Cliff Hamilton, informing the board that they have reached an agreement to sell the hangar to JP Development, as requesting approval from the Airport Authority for a sale of the hangar subject to JP Development LLP entering into a new 10-year ground lease agreement with the Municipal Airport Authority. This hangar is in the North General Aviation area. It was built by Dr. Tom Nagel at first, and then there was a hangar swap some years ago. Cargo Jet Center. They do request a 10-year lease. Typically, we've done 5-year extensions with, I think there's been 3 exceptions out there for 10 years. The hangar is in good condition. There was some trim that we brought to their attention a number of times that needed to be, like fascia cap trim that needed to be replaced. I don't know if that's been done yet, but outside of that, the hangar is in good condition. The lease would be updated to the current language with the provisions. I handed out a sheet to you this morning that has some excerpts from current leases that we have, which talks about the use of the premises. It talks about the rent, and your predecessors and previous legal counsel chose to include in all of our ground leases for hangars that rent is subject to change on each anniversary date versus doing automatic escalator, because some airports that have done that have run into some issues. That's what your predecessors have done. That's what legal counsel had done. You can certainly change that, but I think we are in the best of situations here where we can change it at any time. If you decide today, we would put it into effect like January 1st, so we give proper notice to any of the tenants. And as you're aware, we've had those conversations here. Mr. Flaxbarth kind of did a little study and gave a presentation, but there wasn't any consensus from the board in terms of how to really proceed. Knowing that getting comparables for what a square footage cost should be are somewhat difficult. We can find out what the comparables are for commercial outside the fence. I think as Mr. Cosgrove had said, maybe it's 40, 50, 60 cents a square foot. We don't know, but there's a significant discount for the airport, but just for the requirements that are here. So the use of the premises, I know that, Member Lind is looking for maybe some changes in the language there about airworthy aircraft. We can certainly consider doing something like that. And then at the time that they come up for renewing their security badge, they can bring up an airworthiness certificate for at least 1 aircraft within the hangar.
Not an airworthiness certificate. Airworthiness certificate is issued when the aircraft is built, and it means nothing. It means at the time that it was certified in 1965, we have to get an inspection from an A&P mechanic, and that is done annually, and it goes in the aircraft logbook.
So the annual inspection report,
annual
is there
inspection.
one that they provide you for that?
It goes in the aircraft logbook. They can bring it to you
You want
and
a
say, hey,
copy of the logbook?
Yes.
I don't know if you concur with that, but we certainly can move in that direction. There was another question about the requirement of the leasing to maintain and repair the hangar. That is number 25 that's on there. That's been in all current leases that have come up for renewal in the last number of years. So we keep it in an aesthetically acceptable condition. So I don't have any issue with the 10-year deal. We can certainly add those languages. If you want to consider what Mr. Lind has as far as the aircraft owner providing that type of information at the time of badge renewal, I don't know how else to do it. Probably the most convenient. Do they come up every year or every 2 years, the badge renewal? Every 2 years. If you want it more frequently than that, certainly notify the owners of that. So what's your desire?
Mr. Chairman, yeah.
Yes.
So I have some concerns that we have fostered this environment of non-compliance where we have people who own hangars and they pay their ground lease and they don't have any airworthy aircraft in there. They just keep it as storage units, and the storage units, the ground lease that they're paying is significantly less than you could get a real storage unit for on the open market these days. And what I would like to do is foster a airport where we have activity, where we are getting takeoffs and landings, which helps our air traffic control tower ratings and the traffic that they get. We get fuel sales from it. We want our airport to foster aviation activity. And I don't want to have hangars full of junk and people not flying, or maybe they used to fly and then they lost their medical many years ago or a couple of years ago, and then the hangar is just dormant. And then everybody who wants a hangar is forced to go to West Fargo or Moorhead to find hangar space, which is the case of me, which is fine. I mean, I like going to the Moorhead airport, but there are no hangars available in Fargo at this time in a economical sense for my flying club to operate in. So I would like to foster an area where we have people who want to be here, who want to fly airplanes, and not just hang on to property that is no longer in use anymore. So I had proposed, I would like to see a provision put in all of our leases to say that there needs to be an airworthy aircraft in there. And like I corrected Sean, we don't want to see the airworthiness certificate from the aircraft because that was issued when the aircraft was built and certified. When it did its initial test flight, came out of the factory 50 years ago, they give an airworthiness certificate. It has to be on the airplane.
Termination. So the use of premises, I think, is what you want to focus on changing. I don't disagree with him, but to say that they're out of compliance isn't true because no lease has the language that you're talking about. So the leasee hereby covenants and agrees that the leasee shall use the above described property for the purpose of storage of aircraft. It doesn't say whether it's airworthy or not, okay? And related personal property, all within the confines of the building. So this is a material change to every single ground lease that we have for aircraft owners. We don't specify whether, I don't disagree with you whatsoever, they should be airworthy, but if someone purchases an aircraft, brings it in, puts it in their hangar, and then the process of restoring it, how do you want that addressed? Because there are people that do that. If someone purchases a hangar and is putting together a kit airplane, we've had that in the past where they put together their kit airplane. It's not airworthy. How do you want to handle that? So, I mean, there's a lot of thought that you have to put into here because there's going to be significant pushback from those that they're in compliance. But if you want to change it, and I don't disagree with you, I want the same thing that you do. How do you put that in here to capture all of that concern and not drive away business too?
You know, thank you. If I'm recollecting, this conversation came up about 12 to 18 months ago. And what we had decided to do at that time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we had decided as leases were coming up, we would do a physical inspection. Isn't that correct? And then, so maybe we're doing the physical inspection, but we haven't actually done what needs to do with renewing the lease to add that language.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay, so maybe we are doing that first step, and what you were talking about is that second step to make sure that we put it in writing for renewals and new leases. That's just exactly what you said. They have to be airworthy.
Yeah, I want it to be in the writing in the lease. Okay, so that there's not any misunderstanding. And say we have somebody who has a hangar full of airplanes that haven't been airworthy in a very long time.
Yep.
He says there is nothing in my lease that says it needs to be airworthy.
Right.
And they haven't changed in 3 years, and so he's not in a restoration process. They're just sitting there as junk. And so, and that is what, take that to Moorhead, take that to West Fargo, take that to Hillsborough, take that to Castleton. There are plenty of airports around here and plenty of hangars around here in the immediate area where you could do a restoration. But I don't want to see, I know how kit planes work. People build kit planes and it takes them 15 years to get them done. And that's just how kit planes work.
So that language then would be added to exclude any restorations or kit planes.
If you would like to put a clause in there that says by exception, if you would like to get an exemption to do a restoration or a kit plane, you can put that language in there. I'd be amenable to that.
Some date on when it has to be.
Yeah, something like
that. Does Moorhead have the language that you're talking about?
No. Moorhead doesn't care.
I haven't found it in Grand Forks, Bismarck, Minot, Williston.
It doesn't mean that we can't have it
I
here.
understand, but there's a reason they don't have it.
You can't do that at the Minneapolis airport. Okay, at the Minneapolis airport, if you're going to have a hangar, it's got to be used. Okay, and that's obviously a different metropolitan area. It serves a different kind of community. It serves a business aviation community, but it doesn't preclude us from having it here in Fargo.
And Jim would know this because he's a tenant for the MAC, and it basically says it's used for an aeronautical purpose.
Yeah, I can't, speak directly to that. I'm guessing.
It's online. Yeah, their leases are online. It's used for an aeronautical purpose. That's pretty wide open.
So with
Devil's in the details, right, John?
That's right. No, that's
Clean it up so that there's not a misunderstanding.
So for the benefit of the group, Stacy, could you put together sample language that encompasses that, with the exception, the kit exception or restoration exception, and then some mechanism by which we validate that? Yeah. And is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I'm also supportive of what you're saying, flying aircraft for treatment. I think there are a lot of exceptions, and when I think about the entire airport and all people that have those, My suggestion would be before you change the lease structure at the airport, that you put that proposed language out to the tenants, give a time period for some feedback. Let's look at some other airports and then implement that with everybody's knowledge, going forward. That would, it changes for some people. But, you know, in this particular case of buying this thing, fully intended for flying airplanes in there, so there's no issue. But I think when, Sean, how many total leases would you have, 50 or 60?
Yeah, probably in the 50 range.
Yeah, so I just think it behooves you to give notice, post language, get some public feedback, and then implement.
I only bring this up because we have two brand new owners coming in. And I want to start the relationship immediately on the right foot and not extend an existing lease that doesn't have any language in there. Let's put the language in there so that it is, it's upfront and say, hey, you gotta fly an airplane if you wanna buy a hangar, you gotta own an airplane and you gotta fly it. Or it at least has to be able to be flown. Okay, that's why I want to do this. I just don't want to extend old leases that into a new relationship and foster an era of non-compliance again. Okay, have we done any inspections or given any notice that somebody has to clean up their junk yet?
I've got a list that I've started since Steve was way back when. I've got a
You
list
said
down what
we've
dates
done this
and what's
18
there.
months and nobody's gotten any notices or nobody's gotten put on notice that, hey, you got to clean your crap out of here, right? That's the problem. That's my problem that I want to fix, is that we have talked about this, we've talked about this, we've talked about it, nothing's happened yet. So I'm trying to kind of.
He's doing the inspection.
What's that?
You know, he's doing the inspections, but then it's to come back to us and have the policy change just like we're doing it today.
It's the exterior of the hangars, so
Yep.
ABHM, the one that Bernie and Larry Haugen have between the old Dix and the carousel, they can put on notice that they last fall, but the weather never cooperated. Tom Nagel did resize his hangar. Mostly looking at the aesthetic. When the hangar doors open, we'll look inside. I don't know if the aircraft is here, we don't have that requirement. You know, probably talking about two individuals, that's basically it. It's gonna correct itself in time. Overall, we're in good compliance. There's some in the South GA that there's aircraft that haven't flown for years. We don't have anything in the lease that says they can't do that. Nor does anyone else that I found. But we can change it.
I think the fact that over the past 2 years we've been dealing with COVID, that
Yep.
would give Sean a break.
Oh,
And
yeah.
as you said, moving forward, I think that the inspection review, updating of the lease is important, but I would want that language. And if you want these two to incorporate it, Stacy would have to have some type of amendment that they acknowledge that that language is going to be there. I don't think they're the type of people that are going to care, and are going to have airworthy aircraft there and probably maintain their property much better than it was.
Right.
So
Nigeria, the Ide hangar has been an eyesore for years. The siding would blow off and it would stay that way for a long time and it would flap in the wind. And we didn't have anything in there that said, hey, you got to fix your stuff. And going forward into Mr. Rohr's buying that hangar, great. And I absolutely know that Jim Rohr is going to buy an airplane and he's going to take good care of that hangar. But trust but verify is all I'm really trying to get in here. So if we put it in the writing, if we put it in the lease, there's no misunderstanding going forward. And that's how you should do contracts in the first place. And we're not doing our due diligence by not having it in our contract.
can I have a motion from the body then? Stacy, is it better to have language, or could we have a motion to start your process?
You need a motion.
Is there any disagreement?
No, I'd like to see, rather than her by herself doing this, to have you two kind of work together and Sean to get some of the verbiage in there that's correct. And maybe even touch base with Jim. Picture it, so we're not flopping around for a year doing this. Get her done right away.
So one other question would be if someone owns a hangar space here and they have a plane that is here but flies out and for some reason is not back here for 6 to 12 months, then that has to be addressed too. It's still a airworthy aircraft, but it may not be here. there's other circumstances that can come up. I think we ask all those questions ahead of time and get as many of the circumstances figured out prior.
I just don't want the clutter to get in the way of getting progress done. Okay, so that's a great point, that you could have an aircraft that's based in San Diego or something like that, and it comes here twice a year, and they need a hangar. Sure, that's fine. I just want to not get in the way of, hey, we're just gonna muddle on this for another 2 years, nothing ever happens. So let's get the ball rolling, and we can make exceptions if we need to. That's my intent.
So Chairman, then really number 5, I don't believe there's a motion on the floor yet. And we just are receiving the communication. So,
5 and 6.
No, we're just talking about the Hamilton one right now.
For right now,
Yours would be
right.
different. So it's either you approve, the sale and then enter into a 10-year ground lease with JP Development. That's what the request is. If we enter into a 10-year ground lease with JP Development, they'll move forward with the sale of the hangar. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, that's correct.
And the language that we're talking about can be included in that. It may not be immediate, but it'll get there.
but it depends on what happens, because it might get there, but only when the lease is up.
Well, so I made it very clear to the council for me and Hamilton
Yeah.
that there's no extending that 2001 ground lease. The ground lease has worked and developed further over the years.
Okay.
And that we'd be entering into a brand new ground lease. And that it would include the language that we talked about. So they're both on the.
So I guess one might consider approving the sale subject to a new and amended lease. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I will
Second. Okay, we have a motion and second. Any other conversation about number 5? Hamilton. Oh,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was just, again, I'm fine with that language, but I think that, to just impose that right now without public comment and input from all the rest of the airport, pretty significant change in environment has never been. Have notice of that for other people. My question is, are you going to go back to those other 50 leases? How can you impose that rule?
I think it would be as we move forward, amending a current lease is reasonably hard annually. We may wish to visit with them, and as those leases come up, they would be amended. Stacy?
That would be my preference. I do think bringing this to the other 50 or so ground lessees is a good idea.
I do too.
So they
Yes.
understand that
Yep.
this is what we just, that I don't think that creates such a restriction in a current lease, like, I think there'd be.
So then you're requiring it of some, but not others.
Well,
You can't do that.
but as leases renew, that's the story of life. As things renew and change, that evolution of a document, you could have something change from year to year in an evolution of a document. But the goal would be to make everything consistent as we move forward. And what that language is, yes, I believe the input from all the stakeholders is important. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments, concerns?
Well, you're part of a real strict science of being fair and equal, so I just think you have to really think about that. Or, I'm not sure if you require someone to do this today and another time, might not, there's leases out there that you haven't seen. Decades? Many years anyway.
We have to start sometime, though.
Yeah, Jim, I would say we have to start sometime. I mean, there's building codes that you have old stuff that is grandfathered in for buildings that are existing, and building code for something that is brand new has to be up to a certain standard. And I'm just trying to get us moving in the future so we can clean up some of our poor behavior.
And I'm on board with everything. My concern is that we don't have language. You're trying to approve something today that really hasn't been printed in black and white and proposed to the public. And I think you're doing this on the apply, and we can put something in this new lease that says there's future language coming or something like that, but, you're imposing something that's completely different rule releases at the airport, without any notice to anybody. Now, agreed, I've understood it, I observed the meetings, I've heard the conversation, but others haven't.
I would say going, on these two individuals, you're starting a brand new relationship, said, we would like you to buy your hangar. We're in favor of you buying your hangar, but there are going to be new stipulations, requirements going forward with these two individuals. And then as leases come up, then that language can be changed more for the existing leases that are coming up in the future. But I would like to start these two with a brand new relationship and a brand new expectation. That's all.
I think one thing we need to consider too is, they might not have come forward with the arrangement if they would have known this ahead of time. I don't know. Potentially. So whether it's, you know, they say, okay, 5-year and then it's evaluated. So I don't know, and I don't know if it's with financing. I know that we need to do this. We've done the same lease for decades, which whether it's right or wrong. But again, they're customers of ours as well.
Yeah. What does JP Development
One
plan
second.
put in there?
1 second. What, or the aircraft?
Would it be
Which one?
wise at this point, you know, to make contact to every tenant, tell them what you're looking at? Basically, instead of trying to do it through the leases, would it make sense, since these are ground leases, that you would have, put into a covenant so that it covers all land leases within the airport?
One thought.
I'd have to give that some thought.
Yep.
Okay.
One other, thing, the Fargo Air Museum owns a hangar in the South GA, and not all of their aircraft are airworthy. They move airplanes for out for events, and they put it in this hangar, but it's not airworthy. How do you want to handle that?
And Sean, you can address that.
Just saying, just so you're aware,
Yeah.
there's gonna be exceptions.
So I think for the benefit of the body, we received communication regarding the sale of the hangar. We're just approving, yes, we'll approve the sale of the hangar. But it doesn't, we're not approving a lease today, we're approving the sale of the hangar. Yes,
You are
Jim.
granting a 10-year lease, though.
Yeah, no, that if, I didn't write the letter, but if I would have submitted it to you, it would have been request for moving. That's what we're requesting. And that's the part right now, is both on the bill and is the intention. We're requesting it. And what language, if you were telling, is okay with me. But I'm saying from big picture, I think have some firm language put in place, understood by all, before we start.
I think the only other thing that we've done here is approve Stacy and these guys to get the right language in there. When they get that, then we'll approve that. Right now, it's just to have you guys sit down and get something in writing for our lease.
But it's still, the motion is for 10-year lease as it's written right now. So if there's language in the motion to say that, well, I bet you've got to have that lease in hand, you know?
Is there a problem with the 10-year lease, or do you want to make them shorter? Is the other discussion I wanted to ask. You want to make them shorter?
I don't think, I think these are business transactions
Yeah, I
that
think
have a life, and for the benefit of those people purchasing, 10 years is a time frame. I mean, they're working backwards off
Yeah.
the business model. And to disrupt that at this point in time, I don't think is appropriate. It's a conversation going forward, but at this point in time, I would stick with the 10 year. John?
Well, the use of property is really, Stacey, I think you can address it. How property is used is more of a zoning issue aspects of it. I know what you're trying to get at, and you figure out a good way to do it.
Remember though, the airport is different than like
Right.
zoning laws for
Oh,
like.
no, I know.
A neighborhood. This isn't the city zoning, this is airport, which has to have
No,
aviation uses.
It's just those things kind of chasing your tail at times,
Mhm.
with the exceptions. Well, planes out of town, I sold a plane with delivery of food. I'm more of a capitalist. I say, well, just raise the price really high so nobody can afford it. They aren't putting planes in. Nobody's gonna like that.
That's an option.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't think you're gonna have trouble with these. I'm assuming that Mr. Sweeney has a banking relationship that's gonna have to be satisfied. They're gonna have to sign the documents, they're gonna have to close on it. And they're probably gonna need a lease.
Mhm.
Agree.
Jim, I think if you'd agree to say, hey, if we get some supplemental funds that you wanna add to the lease, and only keep air and my pontoon. That maybe that can work at this point, and so these two can get taken care of going forward. But I don't know, same thing happens with the city with old cars and parking area and driveway. And of course, everybody can park a car in the driveway. What they do is it has to have a current sticker, has to be licensed currently, stay longer than a certain period.
Kind of the same, under the same breath of the same thing. You can have your airplane in there, you don't have to fly it, as long as it's airworthy and it gets inspected, and I would like to be insured, you know, that'd be great, in case there's a loss of some sort. You wanna stick your pontoon in their hangar, and still fly your airplane, and there's room for both, I don't care. I mean, it's their building to do what they want with, but I just don't wanna see, airplane hangars not get used for aviation purposes. And that's the whole crux of the whole thing. So, and you just gotta get it in the language, in the contract, so that, you can go back to it and say, you're not abiding by your contract. That's the whole reason I wanna have this conversation. And I brought it up a couple of years ago, and we still are, you know, trying to sort through the butter in the way, so.
I still have kind of, I totally get it, and I remember that, and I keep thinking of, it's not that we're doing, it almost does feel like we're doing it on the fly. And I just think, you know, these guys came to us, whether it's number 5, number 6, assuming that it was going to be done this way. And so part of it is, yes, we need to move forward, but is it fair or is it fair that we're doing it just for their leases as they start, when that's, you know, from a business perspective, I don't like to be thrown these different variables when they're used to seeing the leases as they are now. So, and to the point, you know, I don't know if this banking relationship, it will change it, whatever. So I'm just kind of in a quandary about that for these 2 leases, so.
Leases have been extended.
Okay.
There is some language.
Oh.
Action for it. There's been some ground leases that have been. So on the table, number 5, approval of, the sale, subject to current lease restrictions we have in place, with the understanding that, Mr. Sweeney, that there may be amendment. And you're not the person your businesses aren't what we're worried about, but as a whole, I understand we want to have an umbrella over everything. And you're right, keep it fair, but we do need to communicate to all the current leaseholders and anyone coming that these updates are pending, subject to their input. So, number 5, any other communication? We have,
I do like the idea that Jim brought up, is make sure that all the lessees are aware of what we're planning on doing and ask for their input. We can sift through their input, pick the good ones out, throw the bad ones out.
so we have a motion and a second. Any other communication?
Just so I'm on the same page, am I to draft the previous ground lease, subject to
Yes.
changes? Okay, cool.
Yes. Jim?
Okay, so she's gonna draft a 10-year ground lease,
Yes,
similarly, recently done.
recently done. And the subject to is, a covenant or something that encompasses all at some point, may overlay on it. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Osgood?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Lynn?
I,
Hingham? Aye. Number 6, similar conversation and a similar situation. I do not have an issue with the buyer. I'm sure they'll take care of the property and improve it.
Met with Jim extensively. We had a number of phone calls. There was another person that was interested, buyer exchanged communications with his attorney as well. Not sure if there'll be a partnership on this, but this is the old maintenance shop for the airport. It was converted into a hangar. It needs to be demolished.
It's actually a pretty hangar.
Well, yeah, after they redid it.
Cameras on it. It looks really nice.
I'm not so sure that maybe Jim would have been here. He's not able to be with us, but I'm sure that that isn't one of the options that he's looking at, is to take it down and then reconfigure a hangar, because the lease does include a right of first refusal for I to build closer to the Nagel hangar. This would be kind of towards the northwest, I guess, if you will. And then reposition the hangar with the hangar door facing kind of south, southeast or whatever. So I think that's on the table for him, but we'll see. I mean, Jim's in the construction business. I'm sure he'll make it look nice. I don't have any concerns with that. But,
Can we see on the subject, the map where the property is for the benefit of?
Right there. Now, is that, what's there now? Is that just a facade around the old concrete block building?
Yes.
Because
With dormers and all that stuff.
that was a mess when I was out here.
So Jim Scott, I think, hired prior to. Could be an option for it now. You could call that as close to the next. Or maybe by our next meeting, possibly Jim development plan.
Yes.
so moved.
Second,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further conversation?
The only thing is that, we're not extending the lease, so he's assuming the same term. But like I say, the language that we've talked about, he'll be made fully aware of that.
And the term of that lease goes to?
2024, May 14th, 2024. Well, he knows in order to get a longer lease, he's got to have a pretty significant development plan. Because if this lease came up at the end of its term, also on what I handed out in there is what's called a reversionary clause. It's very controversial around the country. Basically, we can just say we move it within 120 days, or it's our hangar. There are a number of airports that do that. Some airports do buy out the hangar as well. There's an appraised value that they buy it out. That's a controversial topic, as Mr. Sweeney well knows, but we have a room full of pilots if we started to enact that here. So what we've done is extended the leases as long as the hangar or building is in an aesthetically acceptable condition. A lot of airports don't do that. They take possession. So and what that does is it just stymies development.
Right. Any further communication or conversation? None? Roll call vote. Lynn?
Aye.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Lynn?
I,
Hingham? Aye. Next, move on, number 7, consider joint cooperative agreement with Fire Department.
This has been a project in the making for, I guess, as long as Chief Bush has been our thing. And by the way, so our sympathies to Chief Bush and his family. His father, Marvin, passed away. The funeral is today. So he's not able to be with us here today, but Stacy, we've had a lot of communications with the city of Moorhead, and the goal would be is per approval today. If you have any questions, is then West Fargo and Fargo, maybe even Cass County, update those.
Any conversation? I need a motion.
so moved.
We'll second it.
We have a motion, second. Anything else on it? None? Vote, please.
Lynn?
Aye.
Audra?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Lynn?
I,
Dan?
Aye. Number 8, receive update on pavement condition index report.
Okay, so this, and Jeff is here, to take a look at. So this, map, and this is provided by the North Dakota Aeronautics Commission. They provide this at no cost to the airports through a state grant, federal grant that they have. Hayden Hunt was the contractor that was selected to do this around the state. And obviously what you want to look at is those areas that are in red, where reconstruction is noted. We've talked about the reconstruction of the west terminal apron. We decided after conversations with the state and the FAA to put that off until after a possible terminal expansion project that we're working on through a terminal area study. I'd also like to look at the south general aviation area. The areas that are red, obviously it's in bad shape. And then Jeff has floated some concepts to get the conversation started on what should that reconstruction look like. I know Kevin from Group 6, I think, is on here today. He got copies of the maps, but we haven't had a chance yet to meet with all of the tenants down there to show them what the concept would be for the reconstruction of that concrete. One of the things that we had talked about preliminarily was the total removal of the heavy-duty concrete to the west of the terminal. That's kind of in the orange area. And, you know, there's a 767 that's been parked over there now for about 3 weeks. So it's on a mechanical, Eastern Airlines. I think they're waiting for an engine change. I'm not quite sure, but there's something going on there. This heavy-duty concrete is conducive to a lot of different things. For that purpose that you see there today, for other things maybe that the Guard does, if we get into other irregular operations with weather from Minneapolis with diversions, it's a staging area for aircraft of that capability, and anything can sit there. We've had 747s and you name it, C-17s, and so forth, C-5s sit on that ramp. So since it's orange, I'm looking at, and I talked with Jeff, and the possibility of salvaging all of that concrete and just doing a mill and overlay. Put an asphalt overlay on top, use the concrete base that's there, and maintain that heavy-duty concrete. Because Gulf Taxiway that comes in from the west, Bravo that comes in from the north, that's all heavy-duty concrete. And I guess give up that capability, I think, would be a mistake for us when it's in bad shape, but I think it could be, the life of it could be extended. So therefore, you would just concentrate on those red areas. There's a green area out here that we reconstructed, I think after there was a FEMA storm or the storm back in 1998, 99, we did some improvements there. Not quite sure why it got green, but it's looking better. It's Mead and Hunt looking at the reconstruction of that South GA with input from the tenants to come up with a plan. I don't believe all the concrete that's there today would be replaced. Some of it will turn to grass, but we would focus on that, and that's what they're working on right now is a plan to do that, and hopefully start in 2023 with that reconstruction project in the South VA. So this is just kind of for your information to let you know that we're addressing those areas on here that are, you know, in the yellow, orange, and red especially.
Sean?
Yes.
Are any of those areas that if we were to do reconstruction subject to grant reimbursement, or is there an exclusion?
Yes, it definitely would be all AIP eligible. What the AIP grant wouldn't cover, we'd get back through a PFC. At the end of the day, it wouldn't cost us anything, but yet we have to front the cost of it in order to accomplish it. So this is just for your information, and this will be all up on the State Aeronautics Commission website, where you can go on every detail that they have here and see what the pavement issue is as they've scored it. Jeff, do you have anything to add? Good?
No, I can get into it a little bit.
Okay, all right.
Let's move on to number 9, receive update on proposed third lane for the security checkpoint.
Mr. Stroll, why don't you come up here? There was a new map provided by Lidos and Faith Group, that's our TSA contractors, to try and address the problem that Terry found with the big HVAC stuff. Maybe they have a solution.
We just got this one yesterday, and they actually asked for our input. So the only thing that we were a little concerned about, and again, was just, you know, it's their deal, so we're not trying to, it's just that, you know, so there's, in the lanes, your luggage goes through, and then if your luggage is flagged, it gets thrown to a back lane. Say you're standing here, your luggage is here, there's another one back here that they take, and then usually would bring you over to a spot. And the way they had it set up, they had and they asked for input, so we just, this is what we did. We just clouded that area and said, because they had basically the lane stopping here, the wall stop is here, and then they had, two, where you put the empty, trays that you'd run through the, baggage. So that was kind of in the way, so I'm assuming they could just move it and walk you around, and they were, I mean, they obviously must know that, but that was the only thing that we did, and otherwise, really none of the machinery has changed, it just shortened up a little bit, and, so we're really pretty much ready to do it. And maybe I can just jump a little bit into the next one from a standpoint. We're really having a hard time getting contractors to bid stuff. I think everybody's so stinking busy with just people doing stuff and they aren't bidding. So it looks like today at 2:30 we're gonna have two generals bid it. Which is and we set so. We do it on a submittal exchange, so on the internet, and we saw that nobody was even looking at it except for those two. And so we ended up sending it to 4 more, and they went, yeah, we'll look at it. And then it was like, they never opened, we can tell if they get into the thing, they never opened it.
This is
So
what the exit.
yeah, but we have 7 electricals, and I think we have 4 mechanicals. So, we got good representation there. So, we've been talking about the idea that in our procurement, if we can stay under 150, we can just invite some contractors and have them bid it instead of going to the world, because it's really not a very big project. It's just, it has to be done at night. The cool thing is we pretty much have all the material, we just gotta cut it up a little bit and reconfigure it. So it's not like we're going to order glass, right? But when we were checking out estimates on it, Fargo Glass, who did the stuff, said, yeah, we don't work at night. And I'm going like, well, okay, so then what do we do? So then we would probably, again, we would just ask the 4 contractors to bid it out. So we really don't, I mean, obviously we care about what contractor we get, but it's not brain surgery or anything like that. So so we're just waiting to try to figure out with this last thing, because we hadn't got that information. So now we're gonna look at contacting 4 contractors. We will probably take the carpet out and just spec that and have that run directly to you, so we can make sure we can be in that. And 150 is really per contractor. So we bid everything multiplying anyway here. So, we've just never bid a project that small that one of the funds would be less than 150. And, so so that's kind of where we're at. We're ready to do that, and we were just waiting because we hadn't got the final deal on it. We just got that. I don't think they're going to say that's a problem. I'm assuming they knew that, that was a pinch point. Maybe they were going to need to move those things if they have to come through there. But, so that's what we're just waiting for.
Just to clarify, so 2 general, 7 electrical, 4 mechanical.
For the exit
For the exit plaza. Okay, all right. So on here, you're just gonna.
So to do the 2 in a row, 9 and 10. So the exit plaza is being bid today at 2:30. So again, we can look online and tell who's involved in it, and then we basically gear it from questions that were bid. So then what happens is it takes 3 weeks to bid it. They don't look at it for the next 2.5 weeks. Then they start looking at it, and then the last few days we just get questions. So then we know who's bidding it, and so we're kind of in that bulk right now, and so we have some confirmed people who have said when they're talking to Joe in my office and Mark that they're bidding the project and they're asking for this and that, just clarification and stuff like that. So it always happens.
checkpoint.
Yeah, checkpoint.
There are some things that need to be done this month, right? The electrical they want to do.
Yeah, there's one electrical piece that needs to be done this month, and that, I think that's just gonna be something that Joel thinks, we're just gonna coordinate with a contractor, whoever, for electrical here. Yeah, so it's just one of those deals where, they wanna get the power in. I think for the big machine where you stand up and put your hands up, that gets moved, and they wanna get the power in for that, so when they're ready, they might need that. And so then that would be just a, it'd be like a work order or something like it. So, Joe didn't think the electrical was gonna be that bad, because really the issue in today's world is, before we've never, when we would say, gosh, we have to work, especially if it's like involved in a hospital or at airport, we have to work at night. They totally did that. And right now it's like, yeah. I was talking to Photograph about another project, and I asked them if they're busy. Yeah, we're pretty much full. Construction is. So yeah, so that's where we're at. I think we're really, really ready to go with all of it, so, and it'll be fun to see the bids on that.
Moving on to number 11.
There's a communication from Charlie Johnson, I guess, to Rob Solik and myself requesting, consideration for, I guess, the Airport Authority of Fargo, in our case, obviously, the airport, to partner with North Dakota Tourism to host a 5-state international roundup. That's May 14th through the 17th. So North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho are represented here. And 35 to 40 overseas tour operators will be here in Fargo for that that event, and he's asked us to sponsor. The options are here for you to consider. I didn't talk to Rob to see what they were looking at, but what is your desire for sponsorship for this international conference?
Sponsorship.
Oh, I
Prior, anything similar before and range?
We haven't, we're sponsoring the Fly North Dakota conference that's here in town today. They request the host cities of $5,000, so when it moves around the state, and that's what we've done there. I don't know if that's an example. But,
that's just, I don't know.
Other two.
Conversation?
What other, events have we sponsored in the past, and how much have we, usually?
Let's see, we've done the Air Museum, annual event at, 2,500?
2,500?
Yeah. Other than the Air Museum and I guess the state conference, that's basically about all that we've really.
I guess one of the things that, and I haven't looked deeply into this, but one of the things that I really like what you said was the regional aspect and bringing the, allowing, people to see that our airport and everything and showing our support of it. I'd be fine with any of them though. I just think that for us to be supportive is, especially with the regional perspective, I think that's really important.
I think we correct ourselves and say, what's the cost? What's the investment?
Yeah.
Because we're investing in
Yep.
The visibility of the airport to other
Yep.
groups and opportunities. So,
Mr. Chairman, shouldn't this be run by the marketing contractor here?
Usually haven't done it
Yeah,
that
this
way.
is a separate public relations fund from marketing. I did send a copy of this to Tara over at Clinton.
And it seems to me it would just be part of their overall strategy.
Certainly could be, that's a good suggestion. We could run it through the Flint thing and see what they recommend.
Yeah, we kind of jump in and start with a one-off.
I can't tell you that we'll get more recognition, whether it's, well, you can see what you get for 3,000 or 6,000, but.
But I think John brings up an excellent point. We get a lot of, whether it's the fly-in, we do support a lot. And we have, as an airport authority, traditionally done that, but it's not to say that it couldn't be considered in an overall strategy.
Great, so we won't act on it, we'll take it back to the, so refer to Flint. Yep. Okay. For input and I don't think we have to. I don't think we have to.
It is
vote on
part of their budget because we took it out of a different budget, but we can certainly ask them for their input.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just to kind of keep in line with the donations that we do for like the Air Museum, stuff like that, I would say, probably the silver package probably would be more in line, and then I'm sure the Air Museum would then ask for more next time.
Yeah, no problem with that.
Moving on to, number 12. Receive update regarding the replacement of the airport rotating beacon.
In your packet is some prices that we received, for our old beacon that's, I guess they told us if they quit, it's gonna sit because it isn't gonna operate anymore. So the, Halibright in Brainerd, which is probably one of the only suppliers around this area, has one for the $13,199.90. And we found, Sun Electric for about $2,000, to do the removal. They can do it in a day, Darren, I believe. That's what they were hoping to do it in a day. The neat thing is it upgrades it to an LED, which should be much brighter and more noticeable. We received complaints as long as I've been here that we can never see the beacon. And the beacons are set per an advisory circular as far as what their angles are and so forth, and it's all within that criteria. It's just that there's so much background light, pilots can't see it. And I think you got a call here the other day from someone who said we can't see the beacon. So this will significantly improve that, but it also helps us to move forward to make sure that we have an operational beacon, which is required. Sun Electric is going to assess the whole, what do they call it, the feed conductor from the panel box up to the top to see if that needs to be replaced. It's $1,200 additional. I think it's going to be in good shape. Our field supervisor believes it's going to be in good shape as well. So we'll be moving forward with that project. Our guys will go to Brainerd to pick up the units so they can save shipping. And bring it back down. So I'm not sure the timing of it, probably.
Okay, let's move on to review capital improvement plan project list.
All right, so Jeff and I updated this in review. Jeff, you can come up and do it here. So since we took out the west terminal apron reconstruction for 2022 and 2023, that kind of shifted the entire thing. And really what we're looking at is 2022, 23, and 24. Not paying a lot of attention to what's beyond there because things certainly change. But after discussions with the FAA and the state, this is what is underway right now for us. The only thing that the other one that we moved was the glycol pump station and force main, the North Cargo Area Disposal. That's number 23 on the list there. We moved that from 2022 to 2023 because they want to get some data, some background on what is it exactly, what are we treating. We've taken some samples out of the glycol holding tank up at the cargo area, and we got the results back. I don't know, Darren, was there any concerns in what they brought back? There's stuff in there, so we moved that project back down to get that under design. But Jeff, you want to go from there if there's any questions?
Yeah, I guess one thing I did want to point out is on the very top here, there's 4 columns of the different types of funding. There's FAA AIP funding, which the airport receives entitlement funds every year, roughly about $3 million. And presently, the airport has roughly $9.6 million of that banked up to full projects. Then there's the FAA CARES money, which there's about $15.5 million that Shauna's set aside to be able to use for infrastructure development projects. And then the most recent money, the next 2 columns is the bill money, which I believe stands for bipartisan infrastructure law. The airport will receive about $3.75 million over the next 5 years for infrastructure development. And then there's also bill terminal funding That's a competitive process that you can apply for, against other airports. Obviously, there's no guarantee that you'll get the money, but timing is appropriate with the terminal project coming. One thing I did want to point out on that, the terminal area study that we've done, we will put in bill terminal funding application, that's due by the 28th of March, to try to recoup that $584,000. Again, you might not get it, but I think what it'll do is kind of prime the pump for getting future money when the construction actually starts. Or that be that year. In 2022 here, some of the significant projects that we're working on are the South GA design, having 2023 construction, North GA apron expansion for Jim's development. We hope to get that designed in 22 built. Terminal apron expansion design, which is to try to get the expanded apron for the new terminal on the east end here done first prior to the building, making staging area, that type of thing. There's some payback on the UPS apron, pavement rehabilitation for the cargo apron, the terminal apron, parking lot. So there's just a lot of upfront design work now to be able to do those construction projects. Those are the big things. I guess some other comments are, this is a working document. Things obviously can change. Some of the things that scare me a little bit are just the volatility in the construction costs. I've estimated these things, and it's wild guess to a big degree. Another thing is like on the South GA, again, the construction cost, but we don't know how big it's going to be. So as we continue to refine those estimates and everything, current data from the prices will up.
I was in DC last week at the legislative conference. A number of airports shared concerns about, how far this bill funding is going to go and CARES and so forth. They're experiencing 35 to 40% cost overruns for projects that they're bidding. So what the estimate is, what they get in bids is 35 to 40% over.
And that's what we've seen here locally too.
Some of the airports that have projects that they're getting steel, they're getting 7-day guarantees on the steel price. Every 7 days, the price of steel.
Mr. Chairman. So are you changing our cost estimates by 30%? Are you increasing the cost estimates by 30%?
They're increased on here, yes.
Already?
To prepare for the worst.
But it's just a guess.
So Sean, one of the things too that came up is we front end the cost of some of this. And you have to have the money to pay for it and hope to get reimbursed for the benefit of the city commission. Commissioner Strand, that's important. We need to have somewhat of a war chest ahead of time. And these unknowns can continue projects or stop them very easily.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to suggest this because it's the most tedious and time-consuming thing to do. Perhaps as we try to improve visibility city with capital improvement projects, that we do have dedicated time to review the capital projects and rank. City every year is always re-ranked projects. We bring more visibility to the process. Right now.
And this has been ranked and changed over the last 5 years. Every
Right.
year it changes.
Right, and I'm just saying, formalized process,
Oh, okay.
public hearing, and a little more time. So we could arm wrestle forever on moving 5, 12, 3, whatever, but that it becomes a living document that way. Always change. Funding available might be something. So the process is there, and
study piece in. Which,
Third or fourth change to the CIP in the last, because of those factors that you mentioned, because of the funding changes, FAA says, no, we can't do this, how they fund. And they said, well, we can get you discretionary for this project, but not this because of its priority with how the FAA, even the state. So to your point, but,
I think John's point though is that transparency of this, and that it is fluid, is good for the city to see that it's not a stamp and then we move on to next year.
I mean, it happens with municipal state budgets all the time. The funding sources switch, causes that. But that would make this a more visible, formal project, that if they're wondering, what are the requests? If we're gonna come back and have mill levy for match projects, that is just formalizing that process.
so this, and per, like in the MOU, so, Mike Redlinger got a copy of it, Kemper got a copy of it for distribution, and of course, Commissioner Strand has a copy of it. We assume if Kemper wants to send it out to the other commissioners, she can, or Redlinger does, but Mike said that he was going to distribute, so.
You just invite them into the process. Again, it also gives entry point on stuff. First thing, you've had a project, yes, you have to study it first. How do you even get it into this process?
I think, John, too, so many of these are things that 99% of these projects, that are required for us. And so I like what you're saying, and I think to make them aware of it, but I think there are so many projects that you might want to do something, yet FAA is saying, no, these have got to be a priority, so, yeah.
It happens all the time.
Oh, I know it does.
Like I said, it's a tedious process to go through that. And your near-term projects can be much more certain. And you don't have to spend as much stuff 10 years out.
Mhm.
I do think the one concern I have is, in our process, educating and informing is great, but letting the city pick projects isn't the goal of this. It's to just tell them, here's what's sitting on the table and our timeline and the evolution of where, when, and how the FAA changes, the importance of it, and or we need to.
No, we would control our own capital. And if they don't choose to participate, that's fine, but it's there. All we're doing is sort of ask for mill levies for a match, construction project. Make them aware of what's coming down.
And I think John's done a good job of presenting this over the years I've been here, and it's evolved every year, if not more than annually. It evolves, and again, much out of our control.
Do you have any specific suggestions how to additionally we could make them aware? Because right now we're doing certain things, and if you've got some suggestions, I know one of the things you mentioned was, a presentation or something. So maybe if you could come up with some of those things to help.
We certainly, if you want to take the capital improvement project, it's usually a single agenda item for me.
Mhm.
And review that, prioritize it, and just invite them to it. If they don't want to come, they can go back, take a minute, watch the recorded, and then just make sure that as we go forward into the process, into the budget process, that we would give them plenty of time. They'll start their process in the summer, that they're plugging that in. They may object to it, but it won't be the surprise to the system. What's going, why is this here? Why isn't it?
Well, and I ask you that because and John knows this, we continually provide the information, and that's why I asked you if there's a specific thing, whether it's a specific meeting, like you mentioned, because when I was on city commission in Arizona, I would get this information and I would read it and I would come up with questions. And our city commission is so busy that if there was something else that we could do to involve them, inform them, because we are doing all this. And so right now, in our perspective, it shouldn't be a surprise. So I like your idea about trying to engage them more, so it's just how to do that to make sure that they don't feel surprised, so.
And Tammy, when I went up in front of the city commission, and I'm sure Commissioner Stan can remember, but that was the expectation, is if we're going to request a mill levy next time, that we continue to come into the city commission and say exactly what John said. We're gonna bring in our CIP, we're gonna say, this is what we're gonna do, and this is what we're expecting as far as funding from you. So, and I believe the mayor, that was his full intention, is to have us just come to a meeting.
So maybe it's just to get on the agenda every quarter or something.
Right.
Yeah, and that,
Is that
no, I
correct?
think that's
Commissioner
great.
Strand, is that correct? Oh, yeah, go, okay, all right.
One comment I'll make too is like all of these projects have always been on the CIP. It's just, they've been accelerated because of all this funding that's become available, and there's a timeline to spend it. So that needs to be accounted for, you know, it's just been moved up the list.
And that other variable.
If you look at the city CIP, there's projects that have been there for 50 years that, you know, just don't get funding, and they stay on there as a placeholder, but
They just go from up here to down
they
here.
get close and, you know.
And then they get dropped.
It's kind of fun to watch, really, if you're a real nerd and like, city government, you can say, boy, that one that made it to number 5 and now it's back to 34.
So for the benefit of the body as well, I think it's important that all the board members here, in groups of 2 if possible, maybe pair with the city commissioner and go on a tour of the facility, a complete tour, understanding what is here, where we have deficiencies, where we see success, where, you know, understand when they say the concrete on the other side is terrible, drive over it, see it, walk, understand that. I think it's important that we all do that, and if we can do it in groups of 2 and offer a city commissioner a chance, or 2 at the same time, we do that, and we do it before the end of April.
I think that's a great
before the construction
idea.
season starts.
We took Commissioner Preston around a couple months ago, and
And I
he
think,
had no idea.
you know what, and I think I've taken some business leaders around, and they do just a wonderful, I mean, to bring city commissioners is really critical, so they see. And, you know, it only takes, if you get a good long tour, it takes 45 minutes, and opens your eyes.
Mr. Chairman, you might want to wait till after the election. Might need a bus.
It's, I actually, no, I prefer we do this now. We're moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
As a body, we're moving forward. I understand there's saying that lightheartedly. But I think it's important that the people in place now understand what we're doing. Whether they're there 6 months from now, well, then we
Do it again.
recycle the tour and do it with new people, so they're more educated people as to what the problems and solutions we've created and opportunities out here as well. Anything else?
That should be it.
Yes. Number 13, pavement rehabilitation cargo apron, is that the cargo area where that 767 is sitting on the LGA?
No, that's the next side of the ramp.
Nothing has been done on the ramp, the original cargo apron ramp.
And then the cargo apron expansion phase 4, number 11, $4 million, what was that?
That is, the UPS ramp, that was the, cost of the project that wasn't funded,
Okay,
currently isn't funded under a federal, so it's reimbursable, we just
work's already done, we just gotta get paid for it. Okay.
pay back there.
Anything else for a move on?
Good.
All right, thank you. Receive update on terminal area study.
So Walker's here from Mead and Hunt. We flew into town for the conference and hopefully for this meeting, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's online.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Justin and Brandon both online as well, so,
Good morning.
just, and I'll be passing it over to Justin for sure, but, just to kind of bring you up to speed on the process and where we're sitting. We have submitted, forecasts to the, FAA and, sort of awaiting those comments. What we do as a process is, you know, terminal inventory and checklist, right now, alongside of doing the forecasting. Once that is complete, then we move into, programming for the terminal, really using that forecast to determine the size, based on, growth, at the airport. And then once programming is set, then we start laying out building alternatives. So, Jeff, you want to just kind of take it away on where we're sitting currently?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Good morning. Thanks for having us. I'm Brandon Halverson. I'm the project manager with Mead and Hunt, and I'm here with Justin. It's good that Mitch is there and Jeff was able to make it as well. Justin Anderson is our planner. He's been pulling all this together, and we wanted to just give you an update on, as Mitch said, on all the data that we've collected thus far, and where we're heading. So we did the site evaluation. We were on site and had all our engineers on site to assess your current conditions. We then submitted the demand forecast, calculated demand forecast, and submitted that to the FAA on February 7th. And then we have a forecast review meeting on March 29th, which is FAA. We were pretty pleased to get that turned around semi-quickly. So from that meeting, that'll pretty much drive the rest of the schedule, getting a feeling for what their review and what FAA's timeline will be. Currently, we are holding interviews with all the stakeholders. So we've already met with rental car companies, some of the airlines, gift shop, marketing, restaurants, and TSA, and we have a few others out there that we'll be meeting with shortly. So I'm going to turn it over to Justin, and he can give you a little more data on his observations of the demand and some of the challenges that going on at the terminal right now.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Good morning, board. I just want to confirm you guys can see the screen, the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, great. So just real quick, I just wanted to give a quick overview of what happened during the site evaluation, and then also go into the forecast and what was submitted to the FAA. So like Brandon said, we visited the site, all of the disciplines from mechanical, electrical, architects, plumbing, all the engineers. We visited the site mid-January and did a walkthrough. What was great is not only were we able to evaluate the entire system of the facility, but we were also able to see where the pinch points were in the terminal based off of the current airline schedule. So just from a visual standpoint, it was great to see, where the terminal was stressing. And as in these pictures, we have the concessions at gate 4 that was overflowing. The hold rooms were people were having trouble finding seats to sit. The seating capacity was limited. And then also we were able to catch the peak hour of arrival flights. At this day, during this day of the evaluation, it was in the afternoon. So this is around 5 o'clock, and it gets really crammed down there in baggage claim. And then we were also able to catch the peak hour for departing flights, which was early in the morning at 4:30, where they had 4 flights going out within an hour. And as you can see, the checkpoint line gets all the way pushed back to that vertical circulation course. So seeing that visually really helps when we do the analysis and find out what the demand is for the day. Going into the forecast, I just wanted to give a quick overview of what was submitted to the FAA. So right now, the FAA is reviewing. They may have comments on what our methodology was and how this compares to the forecast that they complete. But what we did is we looked at what the activity was at Fargo since 2003. And of course, right now it really is looking through a crystal ball with COVID and computing forecasts and how the industry is rebounding. So here, 2019 was the busiest year at Fargo, and that was very similar to a lot of airports across the country. And then, COVID happened. What's great about this with the rebound is Fargo, since after 21, they rebounded to 15% of 2019 traffic. That is above the industry average, which is around 20% of 2019 traffic. So recovery is being experienced a lot quicker at Fargo than other airports. And this is what I was just saying, 15%. When we look into the forecast, we do a regression analysis and look at the population and the employment trends in the area, and that is a direct variable of how we can forecast employments for Fargo. So, just quickly, we look at a 20-year forecast. In 2041, we are looking at about 748,000, a little bit over 748,000 employments. And that's about a 2.12 compounded annual growth rate, which is pretty fair with what FAA standards are, with what the FAA experiences during forecasting. From an operations perspective, they're at about a 0.79% compounded annual growth rate. And you may be asking, well, why are those so different between the employments, 2.12 and then 0.79? Airlines, they are retiring their smaller regional jet aircraft, so they are bringing in larger aircraft to the facility to handle more passengers, although they are having less operations. And Fargo is experiencing that. They're seeing more larger aircraft, the A320s, A321s, and seeing less of the CRJ 200s, the 50-seat aircraft that Delta, United, and American bring in. So that's why they operate, and that's across the industry. So that's why operations you're seeing at a less growth rate. What is important for this terminal study is we really dive into the peak hour, and that's what drives the amount of space that we need for a terminal expansion program. So what's important from this graph is that we are trying to accommodate in the future about 555 enplanements in their peak hour. Fargo, it varies throughout the year and when that peak hour is. Typically, sometimes we see it first thing in the morning. Or sometimes we see it mid-morning when Allegiant comes in with their A321s. But what's consistent is that about 555 enplanements come through the airport during the peak hour. And that's what we are trying to size the facility for in terms of ticket counters, security checkpoints, gates, concessions, circulation space. Everything is matched at this peak hour. So this is what we have been submitting to the FAA. So that's where we're at right now. Brandon, if you want to just quickly, where we're heading here over the next couple months.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Justin. So I think everybody on the board knows that we are focusing on what you're looking at your screen, the Plan East addition over here. And that is what our study is focusing on. So we're going to continue tenant interviews. We should wrap those up by the end of March. And then once we receive the go-ahead from FAA on the demand forecast and everything looks kosher, we'll proceed on to developing alternative concepts, defining space requirements for future terminal based off our forecasts as well, and then bringing all of that together, developing alternatives, and ultimately landing on a preferred alternative concept and developing that further. So the alternative concepts that'll be in the April-May range, and we'll keep moving along. Any questions on what we've presented up to this point, or just any questions in the process in general?
I have a question. This is Eric Lind. I'm curious, how many seats are you planning to have per gate going forward in the terminal expansion?
No, that's a great question. So the seats is going to be based off of the largest aircraft that can be served at that gate. So we determine that during the programming phase, which happens after the forecasts have been approved by the FAA. So we are at a kind of a standstill right now until we receive the approval from the FAA, which then kicks off the programming, and then that defines how many seats how much area each hold room for each gate is going to be needed. I will say, Fargo, they have I'll just say A321s or A320s at each gate. We in the industry, they're called Group 3 aircraft. A typical size for a Group 3 hold room is roughly about 3,300 square feet. To achieve level of service standards defined by our aviation organization planning group. So it's about 3,300 square feet, and then the amount of seats that depends on what the airport really wants to do and what the tenant wants to do if they lease that space. That's still to be determined in the programming phase, but the area itself will be about 3,300 square feet, which will be a great improvement from what's currently being experienced at Fargo. You know, one thing with Fargo and a lot of the smaller hub airports is these airports were designed to accommodate the 50-seat aircraft. And now they're bringing in these larger aircraft, and yeah, the airplanes can fit, but it's the facility that's being stressed, and that's what a lot of airports are doing now, is they're focusing more on the terminal and trying to accommodate the interior part of it. So I will say about 3,300 square feet per hold room. The seating is still to be determined.
Okay, the reason why I say that is because I left on March 4th, and I left at 5 a.m. time, and there was 2 A321s from Delta loading at the same time, and that's a 200-seat airplane. And I and my wife had to sit on the floor because, you know, with social distancing, people are still trying to sit in between, and there was absolutely no seats. There was no social distancing. People would put a bag on the chair. And so I'm looking at a 200-seat airplane, and I'm looking at it and saying, you know, you almost need 300 seats per gate in order to satisfy an A321. And I think Allegiant was on the other side, and they had a A321 as well. Just like you said, we have 50-seat gates, and we have, you know, these giant airplanes coming in. So anyway, that was my question. So
we have metrics that we use on terminal seating, on hold room seating as well. And then we work specifically with Sean and his team about kind of where we deviate from those metrics. So design aircraft is exactly, what Justin's talking about here. Typically, what has been used in the past for airlines has been 80% of a load of an aircraft for seats. So you would say a load factor is not going to be 100%, so you're not going to give 100% of a 321 a seat in the hold room. And then 80% is because some people walk around, stand around, et cetera. So there are industry standards that, that we will start with, and then we can deviate one way or another. A lot of what we try to do as well is setting, gates and hold rooms that aren't constricted, that aren't just like, this is gate 6 and there are walls on this side. So there can be some overflow if you have a 321 on the ground. Certainly those are things that we will move through in programming. I think, again, even the 3,300 square feet is like general standards. We start there, and then we start adjusting based on the need for the specific airport.
I think it's worth mentioning that the diagram that you see there is a placeholder from the master plan. I don't think the expansion to the east is going to look anything like that. It's going to be significantly different.
Right.
A long walkway. We'd have to have golf carts going back and forth for people. I mean, so I think the expansion is actually going to look much different than there.
Correct.
I'm sure you're considering that, but Sean, it's a good point, because we've all walked through the airports. When you walk through the old section, really appreciate the holistic approach that, you always feel coming to Fargo, the old section of the airport. If this is just when I come down, and I would hope that we can look at even design function of existing space of all kinds of stuff. That's the old and the new.
Significant portion of the existing gate area somehow has to be expanded. You get to gate 4, which we can put a mainline airplane on to replace this bridge. There's 37 seats there. So the north walls of the existing terminal are going to have to extend out. It might be moving jetways out. So we have to kind of inflate the gate area significantly. And how that's going to look, I'm not sure, but I have a concept in my mind. But I don't know what the cost is going to be. It's going to be exorbitant. We have to serve the public somehow.
The pilot shortage has made the airlines reduce frequency, reduce the number of flights in a day, to carry the same number of passengers, they're putting larger and larger planes. Our gates are not built for that, and I think we need to build to, you know, the church on Easter Sunday kind of thing, where, what is the largest plane we can bring in here, and we have to build to that going
I
forward.
really hope that you read that 50-page small bar Boyd document I sent out, white paper, I don't know. If you haven't, please go through that. That was the talk of DC last week. And Michael Boyd has been talking about this for 7-8 years about small service. The airlines in the next 90 to 120 days, maybe shorter now with fuel costs escalating, have some real choices to make about essential air service cities or capacity purchase flights that they're doing for Delta, American, and United if you're a regional carrier. Because they're going to be mergers within the regional airline system. There's a lot of uncertainty, but the number of markets that are being operated today are going to be significantly different. Fuel is driving it, pilot shortage is driving it.
That's why I asked about the number of seats are we gonna build? How many seats are we gonna have? Do you know how many seats we have in gate 1 and 2 area at this point?
I don't know, Justin, you have that number offhand, actually, specific furniture counts? I know we do.
Yeah, the furniture count, I don't have that off the top of my head right now. We're just looking at the overall area, since the furniture does vary from gate to gate. But yeah, that is something that we're going to be taking a look at here as we go into programming and concept development.
And we'll be dialing in on that right now. As you can see, the demand forecast is the overall of the terminal, and then as we progress, we start dialing into the specifics, like specific areas per gate, how many square feet the restaurant, and then we start developing block diagrams. So that's on the horizon here. But right now we've just taken that first leap of, okay, overall, we need to prove that we're beyond capacity.
We don't know for certain yet how the checkpoint expansion is going to impact seating in the gate 2 and gate 3 area. There could be some reconfiguration of that seating because the gift shop kiosk needs to be reconfigured slightly. And then there's a storage room for the gift shop out there along with the TSA interview room. We might be moving seats around again and maybe losing a couple sections. We don't know yet. Get that figured out.
Yeah, and the analysis is on existing terminals. That this is not a concourse area study. State capacity for it is specific to that. We will then also say, you know, seating area is limited here without an expansion towards the apron to the north on your existing concourse to provide additional seating. There are also, you know, right now we try to look at multiple different seating options other than just beam seats. But here, you know, right now it's try to get as many seats in. Certainly, I came in on a 737. You know, when I flew into Fargo, and I was pleasantly surprised by the load factor on it as well. It looked like it was relatively full. But yeah, he came into, I think, 1, you know, and that was, so we're seeing the upgauging happen. Well, in speaking to his terms too, when I left for DC for a conference, and that was the day of the big storm, and basically it was the wind that we couldn't bring in people. I was supposed to leave at 10-something in the morning, didn't get out of here till 6-something that night. This place was just packed.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't move in that place.
Any irregular operation is just exacerbates your situation. I mean, it's pile up on each other.
Overwhelms the restaurant.
Oh, I bet.
And restrooms and everything. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Move on to number 15. So in your packet are 3 proposals that
Thank you.
Airfield 2 received. They wanted another blower because of all the winds that we've had this year. The snow piles up around the sign. So we do have a tractor that will accommodate this blower. So the Schulte one through Sourcewell was the lowest cost. This is provided through Butler Machinery, the $22,787.49. The other blower they looked at from RDO was $26,500. And then I think this one here was from Fargo. Titan Machinery was $48,500. I don't know how. Anyway, so I guess your concurrence to get our crew to get this one from Butler Machinery, the Schulte, for
22, 787.49 would be.
Second.
Second.
Favor, signify by saying aye.
The only final thing we'll talk about is, I know he's still here on the maintenance shop. They did fix the metal panel. That was done, last week, I believe. There's supposed to be a crew over there this week, maybe even today, working on the drainage issues so the water doesn't drip off and go into the restroom. They've got a plan to do that. I'm not sure if it's grinding or it's epoxy. The electrical issue is fixed. I think there's still an overhead door issue that Joe's aware of and some others that they're working on. But outside of that, I think once we get those things taken care of and it proves that it's done, we still owe Meineke 300-some thousand, I believe, that we're retaining. Let's get them paid and wrap up this project. So, and then Jeff can get the closeout into the FAA. We did receive a notice from Kent Costin on March 2nd that schedule of city pension termination values by employee in the termination payment calculation. This amount is modest because we have improved our funding status significantly since the adoption of the pension funding policy in 2012. And they're going to process an invoice for a termination value of $37,000. There's some other information here. So I give that to the chair. I guess there maybe were some questions generated from that, but I haven't received the invoice yet. But this is our final payment then for the pension plan. Is that what you're gathering?
Marvelous. Move to accept as soon as possible.
Need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to move, to accept that.
Second.
We'll call vote.
Lind.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye.
Engen. Aye. And as far as the individual employees, I talked with Mike Redlinger last week. We're still waiting for them to meet with us individually, let us know what our pension options are. That's been pending since, I don't know, October. It's been a while. Now that this study is done, I would think that they would have the information for each employee to decide. Those of us that meet the rule of 90 might start drawing the pension, and others will have some decisions to make. That's all I have. Daily review, I've heard nothing back. It was received by the finance committee, and then one commissioner had to meet individually. We've received no feedback on it. Mike didn't have any input on it. Ken Costin met with me and didn't have any concerns. I don't know, John, if you heard anything different. There's nothing.
I don't know, the finance committee was where.
So all that time, that was 5 days of my life, I won't get back. So anyway, that's all I have.
Anything else for the good of the order?
I just have one question in the parking lot. With all the snow, how many spaces do we lose?
There may be a few in the short-term lot, but John, they tend to pile the snow in the corners.
I was just meaning to like start spreading out.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. We were in overflow mode here a week or so ago. There's still a few in the overflow lot, but
That's the biggest complaint I've heard this winter. Now that we have a real winter.
Yeah.
Everybody ate. It's always the other guy. Exactly. Rick Marks.
They did, Jay did tow a number of vehicles, so they put out the cones and everything else. Don't park on this side because they can't get the snow removal. People get out, move the cones and park. So one day they towed 11 cars, didn't impound them, they just moved them to a different location in the overflow lot and leave notes and notices to say here's, and takes pictures. So we're looking at some different signage out there possibly to keep people away from the rails, but once that happens, there's no place to move snow. And Master has, under their contract with SD Plus, is trying to right size the equipment to get through, and they use a skid steer and stuff, but it's just a battle. This has been a bad winter for that, so.
It should be noted that since Sean Parks beside me, I can assume the door dings are from his.
Several of them.
Nothing else, meeting adjourned.